live from the Capri Campers mobile podcast studio and community development center. This is the Small Truck Campers podcast, where we aim to build community, share inspiration, and encourage others. We got a lot of great things to cover out in this episode, so why don't you grab your favorite campfire beverage and let's hit the road. All right. Well, right now I'm sitting here with my podcast guest, Christopher McKinnon. He's calling in from just outside Moab, Utah, in his awesome Ford custom truck cabin. And that's actually his Instagram, is custom truck cabin. So, Chris, we're going to get into the building of it, how you came to be, what you're building that thing on, where you're at currently, all that stuff. I'm super excited. So without further ado, welcome to the Small Truck Campers podcast.
Thanks for having me, bro.
Yeah, no, I'm stoked. Came across a post you did probably a few months ago. I think we reached out and had to get you on the show because that thing just, I want to hear the story behind it, how it all came to be. And like I said, we'll get into that here shortly. But why don't you just give the listeners a little introduction, like where you grew up, how you got into camping, and kind of maybe some rigs you had growing up. And we'll start there, man.
Sure, man. Yeah. So I grew up near Vancouver, Washington. So like close to Portland, Oregon, but the Washington side of the river. And I had a very active childhood. I spent a lot of time in the mountains of the Snoqualmie Pass. So east of Seattle, Washington. It's pretty cold up there. And my family has this like legacy cabin that's like built in the 1800s. And there was this, it's a single room cabin with no electricity, no running water. And when I was growing up, I always remembered being just such an intense experience when I was a really little kid to go out there in like the winter, when it's like 15 degrees or whatever, and have like sitting around the fire and having these kerosene lanterns going. So there was that. It was a big part of my childhood. And then there was also the beach. The ocean was a huge part of my childhood. Seaside, Oregon. My family also has a house out there, and I was so fortunate to be able to grow up with basically constant and near unlimited access to the ocean. So I was always around in nature growing up, in the mountains and by the water. And my mom took, me and my sister on a bunch of trips when I was younger and into my older ages as well. I got to see lots of domestic places in the U.S. Got to go on lots of international trips as well. I started going on my own international collection of trips after I graduated university. And I spent like 9 months living out of a backpack, going from like Jamaica, Iceland, Australia, Tasmania, all over Europe and stuff like this. Went broke. Not broke, like things fell apart, but I just ran out of money. And I came back, borrowed 10 grand to start a fitness studio. I did that for like a few years before COVID. And then when that happened, I got into construction because I wanted a better way to make money that didn't really rely on always being in person for extended periods of time as far as like a relationship with the client goes. I got into construction because, I can go to a place or go back home and make a bunch of money and then leave and travel for a while. So I started getting into that. And around that time was right when I got interested in building myself somewhere to live that was mobile. And so my first rig was a tow. I can send you pictures of this, but
Sure.
I had a tow behind a motorcycle trailer that I built that almost killed me on the very first drive, dude. It was so scary. I was too big. It wasn't aerodynamic. I rigged the hitch up on the back of this like 1400cc cruiser bike, and I had seen some stuff on YouTube of people doing stuff like this, and so that was my first introduction to trying to build something mobile. And I took it out for the test drive, and it was good doing like 30, 35. And as soon as I turned onto the back road highway, it like started fishtailing on me hard, and I'm on a bike, so like I can't really stabilize it. And knock on wood, I've never had a super bad motorcycle accident, but I remember in my mind vividly thinking like, this is it, man. You know what I mean? Because I'm going like, I get up to about 60 and it starts just shaking me across the road, and I'm freaking out because I'm like, well, I have to bail. I have to jump, right? But, I don't. I'm like, I always thinking in my back of my mind, I'm like, just be ready. You know what I mean? As I'm trying to like slow it down, no brakes, no nothing, just trying to see if I can regain it. I eventually do regain control of it, don't crash, put that thing home, and I sell it promptly, not for someone else to use on a motorcycle, but just for them to tow behind in a car or something, because I was like, this doesn't work with like what I had in mind. It's not safe. It wasn't even windy, you know what I'm saying? And then I bought a truck, and the truck was like an old Chevy S10, and my uncle sold it to me. Great guy. And yeah, so I lived out of like the canopy in the back of that for like a little bit. So I put like a mat back there, and but it was like crawling into like a cave every time, right? Because you can't sit up, anything like that. I had a couple like very rudimentary bookshelf type things on the sides for like my, my sentimental items and like whatever. I had a 5 gallon drum of water in the passenger seat in the front cab or whatever. And so that was my first time transitioning to living out of like a truck. And then I bought a like an F-250. I have pictures of all these things, no videos really or anything, but um and that thing was like a real hunk of junk, man. I didn't have much money, but it was a bigger platform, so I bought it. It looked like it was falling apart, you know? And I also didn't have much money for the build, so I really just scrapped together um, this there was one window, no venting, no insulation. It was like a wall. It was framing and sheathing and stain deck sealant on the outside and truck bed liner on the roof and stuff. And it was pretty ugly and it was super cold in the winter, sweltering hot in the summer, highly uncomfortable. Nothing that would that I would ever get like asked, "Yo, did you build that?" You know what I'm saying? It was like, "Yeah, dude, if someone built that and they didn't build it very well," you know. So that was, but I mean, I still like it was still cool to me. I was still proud of like having done it. And mind you, I did not grow up doing construction. I didn't grow up like in the trades or anything like that. Um, but during this time when I'm like living out of these vehicles and stuff, I'm progressing in carpentry. I started out laying flooring, like, largely, laminate flooring, luxury vinyl plank, stuff like that. So not like super technical work, but just kind of good money if you can work hard. And I was young. And so but I also looked at the dudes in that industry and I saw, these guys at 45, like walking onto the job site with like a belt and like limping with like two knee brace, you know what I mean? And mad respect to people who work hard like that. But I remember looking at that and being like, I not only do I not actually really enjoy this, like sure it pays well, but I don't actually really enjoy just repeat laying flooring. I liked learning how to do it. Once I had the skill set down, I was like, I want something else. And so I put myself out there for like finished carpentry work. So I got into doing hanging doors, windowsills, for trim, baseboard, stuff like that, like artistic carpentry. And I did that for a couple of years, working on remodels for myself, and then also working through as a subcontractor through another dude in production carpentry. So just getting lots of reps doing finished carpentry, and then all of that was like kind of accumulating, and I realized, okay, well, funny enough, like right around the time when I had just enough money to build this and all that, my truck crapped out on me, the truck that I was living in. And I remember thinking, I was like, well, either
What kind of
it,
truck was that? Was it gas or
it was
diesel?
Hey guys, I just want to share with you something I learned along my journey with small truck campers. When it comes to securing the camper to the truck, the old adage of buy it right once could never be more true. I've tried every sort of way to secure the camper to the truck, from the bed mounted stakes down system that clamps onto the bed rail, and most recently the bar that goes in the front of your truck bed that bolts on your truck bed. And although all these systems work to get me from point A to point B, they either damaged my truck, damaged my camper, or damaged my truck bed, either in the process of installing it or just over the course of my use. Most notably, with most of those systems, the camper was secured enough, but not really well. Looking back, what I should have done is just done it right once and gone with a torque lift frame tie down system. And the advantage of this system is that A, most of the time you don't need to drill into your frame, it just bolts onto your frame. And then B, once the system is in place, the camper is actually held in place by your frame, not your truck bed. This means that body roll and sway are considerably reduced when you're cornering, and it makes the camper just feel so much more secure and like cemented to the back of your truck. So these guys have a ton of solutions for any of your camper needs or issues. My favorite right now is the fast gun system they have. Normally there's a chain in place with some turnbuckles, and you got to sit there and tighten each turnbuckle, go around, tighten the next turnbuckle, go around, tighten the next turnbuckle. And then every time you stop, for a period of time, it's advised you go and check the turnbuckles again. Doesn't really make a whole lot of confidence when driving down the freeway, but these fast guns, you just set it for the distance you need to cover from your camper to the frame mount system, and you lock them in place. And then the camper is literally so strong and connected to the truck. Torque Lift is all made in America too, so you're supporting American jobs. I'd encourage you guys to check them out if you haven't already, or you don't have a system in place that you're too happy with to secure your camper to your truck. Because don't be like me, don't be drilling 10 holes in your truck, don't be messing up the paint job, and don't be messing up the truck bed by trying to save a few dollars here or there. Check them out, Torcliffe International.
It was an F250, 460 engine, and it
Yeah.
was like a 4-wheel drive. It had a standard truck bed. There wasn't a flatbed. I'll send you pictures of it for reference
Sure.
or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it was. I'm like, yeah. Anyway, I like the truck, but it it crapped out on me. Literally, the kingpin broke. The brake lines all bursted. Like all of this was like on like one trip, dude. And I almost crashed through my uncle's garage, like parking at his place because my brakes failed and got backing down his driveway. And like I just remember thinking, and this thing is falling apart, right? And so the writing's on the wall. I'm in my mind. I'm thinking, well, either I'm going to sell everything and just hop on my motorcycle, not for much, but to sell everything, maybe my tools and stuff too, and hop on the motorcycle and go for another cross country motorcycle trip, which I've done a few of those, or I'm going to build something that I actually like. You know what I mean? And because now that I've been living out this thing for like this, crappy thing for a year and a half, something, I was like, my skills have gotten better. I think I know. I have some money. I'm going to make a push to build something cool. And then in my mind, that was to me, it's like wood fire stove, important, man. So of course I'm going to do that. Big floor space. I knew I wanted a flatbed. Because I wanted that floor room. I hated walking down that narrow little hallway every day in my little camper. And when I say hated, I don't mean like you know what I mean. I
Yeah.
realized its deficiency. And then I also in my mind this was like I was like Windows. I not only do I want big cross draft, but I want to see pretty things. Like what's the point in taking this rig places if I just sit inside and stare at like ugly interior walls? I don't know. To me, it just didn't make sense. So I knew what I wanted. I wanted windows, wood fire stove, and a big floor plan. So hopped on Facebook and I was like, if there's a truck I like, then I'll go that route. If there isn't, then I'll sell things and go, this other way. And go on the motorcycle and start traveling. I hopped on and I found this truck that I'm sitting in right now for $5,000. So it was a pretty good deal. The only issue with it is it's a gasser, so it eats gas. It's expensive to move around in it. But at the time, I couldn't afford, another like 9-10 grand for like the diesel version of this same truck. But I remember checking the truck out and like standing on the 12-foot by 8-foot flatbed and just looking around and being like, there's so much room here, And I remember thinking, I was literally just standing on it. I was like, dude, this is it. I could build something sweet on the back of this. I could see it. And so, yeah, so I bought the truck, loaded up the old camper that was on the other truck, put it on this truck for, like maybe 2 months while I was planning. I remember so the main thing was buying the windows. These windows are very expensive, but what I basically did, tip for anyone listening, but if you like big windows, but to me, I hadn't built the framing in the truck or of the cabin yet. I hadn't built anything. So to me, I was like, the things I can save money on buying secondhand that'll be just as quality as if I bought them new would be windows. Because a lot of times what happens is contractors will overbuy windows or whatever. They'll end up being the wrong size, et cetera, et cetera. And they'll try to sell them on Facebook Marketplace. And so I think I got all of the windows in here for like $700. And I think that's a pretty good deal considering some of these are large. The main one is like larger than 8 feet wide in really great condition, Milgard windows. And so, so I bought those and then I designed the framing dimensions around the windows that I purchased. So they are standard if one was to break, which is a critique I unwarrantedly get, in my opinion. Just because I thought the proof's in the pudding, they don't break. But I could replace them. But of course, they're specific sizes. And to me, I was like, well, I can buy these things for pretty cheap and just design the framing around them. And so that was kind of how it started. Got the wood stove. Where do I want the wood stove? I want to look through the window. I want to look past the wood stove, out the windows. And like, so this is where things all started ticking. And then, there's tons of other questions I can answer about like why it's built the way it is. But yeah, I had I had some resources to buy material. There was of higher quality. I could actually insulate the thing. You know what I mean? I could put a solar system on it. Like all these things I could not do the last time. And I had the skills to build it. So that was kind of, a pretty long-winded answer to your question. But yeah, man. Yeah.
Just a huge shout out to Capri Camper for making this podcast possible. Having this mobile podcast studio is just a perfect way to have it set up, ready to roll, invite awesome guests onto the show, and I get to enjoy the craftsmanship, how well this thing is built, and I love just looking around. It's so inspiring. So thanks to Capri Camper. If you're interested in the Capri Camper or you're considering a Capri Camper, feel free to hit me up. I did a full walk around tour with the owners. I had a podcast on with the owners as well. And I got to really learn the ins and outs of how Capri campers are made. So if you're considering a hard-sided camper for your small truck, Capri Camper is where I would start my search. If you got any questions, feel free to DM or email me. Be happy to chat with you about them because they make some really great products for a variety of trucks. And they're stylish, they're comfortable, they're insulated, they're warm, and they're timeless, to be honest with you. No one else is doing what they're doing. So check out Capri Camper. Or if you got any questions, feel free to shoot me an email or a DM and we can chat.
I love it. Lots of good advice there already. Backing up real quick, where'd you go to school and what'd you study?
I went to Gonzaga University,
Got it.
Spokane, Washington, and I studied philosophy and business. And I was gonna be like when I was a freshman, I was enrolled in accounting. I'm good with numbers, but man, very quickly I realized I didn't want to do that, for money, because I got an accounting job, like managing some books for a restaurant chain while I was in college, like we're assisting those numbers, and I just remember being like, yeah, this is easy, but really not fulfilling. And then I fell in love with philosophy. And so I was either going to graduate in 3 years and do accounting, or I could pick up, another year at school and study philosophy. And I fell in love with philosophy. I was like a Jesuit education. So initially I was largely educated in like the Western history of thought, a lot of Christian stuff, which is great, man. I have a Christian background myself, but definitely not like the full picture of like the history of world thought for sure. Which I delved into after and during college on my independent time. But yeah, that's what I studied in college. Yeah, I loved it, man. I was fortunate enough to get my school paid for through scholarships and good grades, and like just really hunting for the money with essays and like everywhere I could, and a scholarship opportunity I could. So instead of graduating early and saving money, I didn't have to save money. So I was fortunately able to study an additional year of philosophy and just kind of like scratch that itch of interest.
Wow, that's awesome. And especially through like scholarships. Were you playing any sports at the time, or was it all through like
It was all academic.
plastic stuff? Okay.
Yeah, it was all
Academic.
academic scholarships. Like, the things is, when I was young, like, one of our family friends' mom, like, got in touch with my mom. They were like, really, really solid parents to both me and my friend. Very like forward thinking and stuff as far as like planning for our futures and making sure we were good to go. And so they just were like both going back and forth, like scouring any like club or like any type of scholarship we could apply for. You know what I mean? Even things that no one heard about. They, the high school wasn't telling us about. The colleges weren't telling us about. Everyone, whether it was $500 or $5,000, it was like you write the essays, you apply for the scholarships, and I also had the highest level of academic scholarship just for like whatever SATs and GPAs, and at the highest level of money the school would give me outright or straight off the bat. But then it was a lot of additional scholarship, but no, not sport related.
Wow. Well, that's in and of itself is a huge accomplishment. Talk to me about what sparked the interest to travel and like why you took off to Thailand, Australia, all that stuff.
Oh yeah, man. I would say my mom, dude. My mom, she was a like incredibly courageous world traveler for like all of her young life before she had her kind of second chapter of life being like raising me and my sister. But yeah, dude, like she was like insane, dude. And this is a time like she would travel with like one of her female travel partners, and they would like travel the world well before cell phones and stuff like that. Go to all these crazy places, Indonesia, China, Tibet. Like I remember her telling me stories of like Tibetan monks taking her into monasteries and like begging her to take pictures of like what was happening because there was a lot of persecution and stuff as China, with Chinese and Tibetans at the time, and telling me just all these like crazy stories of these beautiful spiritual places and places so rich with tradition and cool and powerful moments in her life, and I could tell how happy it made her, and so yeah, like I think I want I wanted that. Now she's not the only individual in my family who traveled. There's lots of other people. My uncle, notably, one of my other uncles, like crazy world traveler himself. I mean, he's got wild pictures that like are unfathomable, and so I come through like these books of travel photos that were just on these like shitty quality whatever, right? But when I was a kid, and I was always like, that's so cool. And then in conjunction with my mom actually taking me and my sister on trips, and then when we got into like high school and college, like going with us on our spring breaks to like different places in Mexico and checking out ruins and stuff like that, she really pushed us to make sure that we did travel, and I mean, like we loved it. So yeah. So anyway, and then of course as like a young dude, like I had all the inspiration in the world. Like I got into motorcycle traveling and spending lots of time living out of a backpack on a motorcycle, like months at a time, just because I felt like that's kind of like an archetypal, young man's like type of, I want to go sleep in the desert, with a backpack off a motorcycle, whatever. You know what I mean? Maybe back in the day I was like watching cowboy movies or something, but there were just a bunch of encouragement in like a positive, um, exciting way when I was younger. They just like highlighted travel and shaped travel into something to me that was worth the time and the money and the what do you call opportunity cost. You know what I mean? Because I also realized that I spent a lot of my time in my 20s traveling, and I just turned 30, and there was definitely a lot of like economic pressure to like focus on business and career and this and but in my mind I'm like the happiest people that I know, like close to me, there's not just like some image of a happy person, but I can verify that they're happy people. They spent a good portion of their life traveling and going pretty far and seeing the world, and they're very grateful. And so to me, I realized I'm like, hey, that's like the type of um, impact I want to have on like the younger people in the world who like come into this place after me. I don't want to be like, you better be rich. Like, I don't like, I mean, fuck, I don't know. Doesn't matter to me. I mean, I don't want to be broke and starving, but it's not the most important thing. So
Yeah, they say, traveling is the only thing you spend money on, and you are more rich afterwards,
they're good. Oh,
you
that's
know?
good. That's good. I
So,
like,
yeah, I couldn't agree more,
yeah,
um, with traveling and just, I think, whether it's, international traveling, which is amazing, or some people are maybe have, can only travel even domestically or in the North America, just
yeah,
getting out of your comfort zone and seeing new places and getting lost and asking for help and, like, figuring out the bus system, all those, like, little tiny skills that may not seem like a big deal, like, along the way, they add up greatly, and then, I was even on I flew out of San Francisco the other week. I had to take the train around the airport, no big deal. But, even just hopping on the train, I was like, "Dang, dude, I haven't been on a train in a while." Like, when was the last oh, yeah, like, internationally was the last time I was on a train, and just that feeling of, like, "Next stop," and you're like, "Where am I going?" It's
that's right. That's
super cool
right,
to
dude.
connect.
Wow, I get it. I totally get it. That's awesome.
Yeah, and that must have been an inner battle because you were at Gonzaga, which is no-name school by any means, with a business degree, on all these scholarships, and, like,
Yeah.
how did you kinda make the decision to pursue kind of, like, travel and adventure over, like, what would be considered, like, a successful career path, which would probably be working for a big firm after that? And now a quick word by one of the supporters of the community, Afuera Coffee. This episode is fueled by Afuera Coffee. Afuera Coffee. Do good, go Afuera. Afuera means outside in Spanish, and I couldn't think of a better partner for our coffee that would fuel all these podcast episodes and adventures. Not only does Afuera Coffee give 5% back to organizations that keep the outdoors pristine, they have sustainably sourced coffee beans, and all of their packaging is compostable. With coffee names like Sunrise Sessions, Morning Gratitude, and Black Gold, it's sure to fuel any adventure you have in store for the day. So do good, go afuera, use code SmallTruckCampers at checkout for 10% off. And now, back to the podcast.
I think a lot of it like came to me to be like the perception, dude. Like where I was in the school of philosophy, um, I realized that and this is there I had some very, very positive role models in my school of philosophy, so this is not to, like, talk poorly about them, but I realized of them of that, like, institution necessarily, but I realized that even in that, like, I mean, because the other thing I would've wanted to do would be, like, be a philosophy professor, right? That was, like, what I ended up kind of, like, wanting to do, or maybe my junior and senior year of college, but I realized that these people, like, weren't as free as I imagined. Like, in my mind, like, we study the greats of historical philosophy and we kind of, like, marvel at them, or I did, and just, like, thought about how cool it was to just, like, have a belief, live it, and articulate it well, and to honestly assess that belief constantly. Um, with like the most sincere effort. And I felt like I started realizing to me that like my senior year of college, I had got aced every paper and test in the school of philosophy up until that point. And the finals week or finals like project was coming around, the capstone or whatever for the education, and I was supposed to do a critical comparative analysis of two philosophers from the 1600s, and my mind was just like, I can't call myself a philosopher if you still need to tell me what to write. And so to me, I was like, I literally had this idea of this paper that was important to me to write, kind of like a metaphysical paper. And And I asked like professors to like come have dinner with me at my place and like talk through this idea and if they would consider, like supporting this, because it's not because I can't do what you're asking me. It's because I want to spend this precious time where don't have to work and have lots of time to come over books and write stuff, to write something that I'm truly interested in. And that was like essentially rejected as an idea in the department. And so I did it anyway. I stopped going to all of my classes. Uh, and I put up this like paper, it's like 70-page single space paper, this biggest paper that I've ever written in my life. And I also self-implemented this like self-implemented this experiment where where I isolated myself in my room for a week with no food and nothing but a little salt rock lamp and this book, the Tibetan book Living and Dying. And I um just wanted to study like who I am, like what I am. I'd never fasted even more than 24 hours at the time. And to me, I was like, this is a real finals test for someone who's ambitious in the realm of philosophy. And in my estimation, you can't say something's a test if you're pretty much guaranteed to be successful. It's just not the nature of a test. That's just a repetition of something you already know how to do. And so yeah, anyway, so all those things, and then and I kind of saw it everywhere. Like I just saw, like I was like, so we're about to graduate and become adults, and I feel like none of us are taking our future into like our own hands. Like there isn't like confidence amongst the group of graduates that they don't still need guidance to like make their life decisions and to. And I'm not saying that I don't appreciate guidance and wisdom, because I really do. But I just remember thinking, I'm like, no, like I don't like I this isn't like I can't say I feel like I'm graduating if this is the way I go. I can't say that I feel like a grown up. I can't say that I feel like an independent, free philosopher or thinker. If I just acquiesce to all of these like requests that to me are not challenging. And so anyway, that's a little bit of like there's a lot of tangents that could be taken from that answer, but um, yeah, I think being like I didn't like look up to, people like graduating and going to work for like big five CPA firms, or like, I just was like, yeah, that's like not interesting to me. I remember thinking like, I don't want to be in that position. And yeah, so like, I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do, but I just knew that like, I knew it would work out. I guess this is also another thing. I've always had this kind of, like, I didn't feel super pressured to go a conventional route right out of school, because I've always felt um capable of I don't know, like pulling off what I actually want to do. I've never really had experiences in my life, unless I was reaching particularly far, where like I, couldn't do something. And I also realized that it's because I care enough to apply myself and put the time forward to learn like how to do it or whatever. And I feel like if I actually love something, I will be successful, because there will be no obstacle that will stop me if I love it. And so I just kind of trusted the rest of my life to work out, I suppose. And that's why I didn't really take the traditional route out of school and go straight into industry or corporate work or something like this, and instead decided to travel and like figure it out.
Yeah, it's incredible. It sounds like you definitely put in the work at an early age and then kind of like live by those principles, and maybe we're on this like search for truth and like this like quest for yeah, for like truth and nothing else. And that's really interesting. That's a really interesting point and concept you bring across. So thank you for sharing. And that fast for 7 days. I mean, we could talk about that for a while, but
Yeah,
that's remarkable.
yeah,
Um,
it's hard.
that's I
Yeah,
bet. So graduate college, you said you did a bunch of traveling, you did a couple. I mean, there's a lot of stories there in between.
yeah.
Um, talk to me about how you kind of got into building. Oh, I guess I want to segue into the camper build that you're currently in. We talked about the other build. Now I kind of see where you got the skills to build it, whether it's through carpentry or through finishing work, etc. So, at this point, are you doing saunas, or is that kind of a side gig, or
Yeah,
is
yeah,
that
no,
which came first?
oh, sure. Yeah, great question. Um, which did come first, dude? They're very much around the same time. I, I'm trying to think. I believe, no, this truck was built first. This truck was built before
Okay.
I started doing like actual full sauna builds. It's like wonderful business owner, great friend of mine. Her name is Michelle. She owns the sauna company, or it's not a sauna company, it's a spa. She started in her backyard. It's been like very successful. And she hired me as like a general carpenter for a while, and I started working for her for several months. And it was through the exposure at her business to like customers who were coming there. This is like the spa was largely centered around saunas and cold plunges. It's like a wellness center. And so some dude saw my truck, this truck with this built on the back, in the back parking lot when I was working for her. And he said, "Is that your truck?" You know what I mean? Because he saw me like working with my tools or whatever on it on the side, doing something, building an overhang or something like this. And or installing a bathroom door, who knows, something general. And he was like, "Yeah, man, did you build a truck?" I was like, "Yeah, it's my truck." He's like, "Well, did you build the saunas here?" And I said, "No, but I could." So I said, and because at that point I had lots of time spent around them, like servicing them, looking at them, studying them, lots of time in them. You know what I mean? Like I spent a lot of time doing saunas because she let me like do them for free or whatever. And so I was spending lots of time in them, falling in love with them, realizing that there's like a lucrative like nature to them too. Lots of people were enjoying the experience of saunas in the country, and it's increasing. I think I don't know the statistics currently, but I would be willing to bet it's still going up. The interest in them. So yeah, I got my first opportunity through that guy. Gave him a pretty good deal to build the sauna because I didn't have really any like actual proof I could build one. Right? I mean, you saw this on the back of my truck, which I think is kind of a giveaway that I probably could build one, but I hadn't actually built one, so I gave him a pretty good deal. And then after I had that proof of concept or like evidence that I could do this, then I was able to market that. And so when other people asked me, "Hey, do you build saunas?" I was like, "Yeah, I built this sauna. Here's the picture, here's the walkthrough." And yeah, and that was, that was kind of off to the races with the saunas. But yeah, those were built in yeah, that would have been after. I would have been after this build. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, yeah, I guess that's the order.
Okay, well, if that's the case, let's talk about the build you're currently in. We went over how you bought the truck on Facebook Marketplace. But for our listeners, let's just go into what kind of truck it is. I know it's a dually F350 460. Is that correct? It's
That's
automatic
exactly
transmission.
That's right. Yeah, it's a manual transmission.
Oh, nice.
It's a manual. It's a 1990 F350 dually. You're right. It has a 12-foot by 8-foot flatbed. It has an automatic liftgate, hydraulic liftgate on the back for where I put my motorcycle up and down. The truck's in great shape. The interior is awesome. I mean, it's an old truck. It's 1990. It's older than me, but it was kept in good shape. All the gauges, all the clusters work. Like all the gas tanks, every fuel, both fuel pumps work. So it's in good shape. Again, like I guess the ideal, in comparison to the ideal, the downside is that it's a gas just because it does guzzle. But for some context or from information here, I suppose the payloads generally on two-wheel drive trucks are higher than on four-wheel drive trucks because they have less complications in the front suspension. There's no transfer case, front drive line, stuff like this. So there's like is kind of this like workaround, way to see it positively that it's a two-wheel drive truck, and that is that it has a higher payload. The front end is less likely to be damaged because it is two-wheel drive. And I have so much weight over the back four wheels that I've never had an issue with traction. If I do go on ice, I do put chains on, and the priority would be the rear tires. And then after that, I put a set on the front. I have a set for both. So yeah, the truck has served me really, really well. Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. Let's talk about the build process. We briefly mentioned that you sourced the windows you kind of looked for like, what do I want out of this thing first, and how am I going to build it around that?
Yep.
Break down to me the actual build process. So like, how did you frame it directly to the flatbed? Did you do a subfloor? Where did you build it at? I'm kind of curious because it's a remarkable camper. I was looking at it earlier on Instagram, and yeah, walk me through kind of that build process and maybe some lessons learned and some things that were important to you. I know we talked about the windows already in the wood stove, but I'm sure layout and all that stuff.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, one of the things was definitely trying to make it as light as possible. It's a pretty heavy build, I'm not gonna lie. Um, but but I definitely thought a lot about like, stud spacing, like what sort like how often how much framing material I really needed, where was it going to be really important. I think one of the biggest challenges was figuring out, with the very few points of framing all the way from one corner, a kitty corner across the build, there's one, two, three like pillars of framing, and that's it with all these big windows. Under those going to be a lot of twisting strength. So I probably spent most of the planning time on framing. And that looked like getting like a CAD program, like a free one where I got like 2 files for free, and just, making my lumber pieces and I don't have any actual like experience with software like this, but I just would butt them up to each other and kind of use them like, little virtual Legos, to try to mock up like how much framing I needed, and where it would be essential. Um, yeah, so I wasn't able to run any like stress tests on it or a finite element analysis or anything like that on this stuff to see if it could handle the loads. But I think I slightly probably overbuilt the framing just to make sure. But yeah, I built this at a property that my sister and her fiance own, that me and my mom and my sister had moved into, um, probably, yeah, like a year and a half ago, because my mom wasn't doing well, illness-wise, health-wise. So we'd all moved in there, and I was working out of there as that using it as like home base, with my other truck cabin and stuff while I was coming up with the plan to build this. And I built this in like a little courtyard area, on their property, and they were like totally supportive of it. You know what I mean? They let me take over the garage as like a workshop to, hammer out the bigger details and stuff. But I built it on the truck. This is something like as I look into the future, building these for people and like expanding this as a business for myself, it's tall, right? And so for me, one of the main things was there's two approaches really. Like one is I can either build this on the ground and then take it out of a garage space and then jack it up, or I could like rent out, a garage that has like 14-foot high doors, and like that's expensive. I want to be around my family. Like I'd rather do this in the courtyard than somewhere far away. And yeah, and the other option was to build it on the truck. And so I went with on the truck. I started building it in the summer. So that was the summer, yeah, 2 years ago. So about 2 years ago in the summer, I started building it. Um, and yeah, man, like I remember I did a lot of research on YouTube. There was a couple channels. I think one of the guys, channels I take a lot of inspiration from is he has a channel called Endgame Campers, or
Hmm.
Endgame, something like this. And he does like a lot of efficient builds. They're definitely smaller scale and stuff, but I looked at his builds. I looked at a bunch of other people's builds because to me the thing was I need to make this thing waterproof from underneath because it's going to be getting a lot of like water coming out from underneath. Um, I need to think about how to bolt it or how to secure it to the build. There's multiple times when I'm going to have to take it on and off during the build process because like the cab over section behind where you drive, right? There's like multiple layers that have to happen for the whole build. I'm not going to, put the framing up, put the house wrap, finish siding, insulate everything right behind the driver's seat while everything else is still bare framing. So what I did was I welded up these plates that I bolted on through the framing on the base framing that I can attach swivel jacks to lift the camper off. And so during the process, I did lift it on and off multiple times, but mostly that was either to make a large material run. Like if I was like, I need to pick up a lot of stuff, then I just jack the camper up, drive off, bring a load back, and then back up underneath it. But I wanted to minimize the number of times I was doing that just because it's kind of a large structure. I didn't want to accidentally back into a jack. I didn't want to screw it up. So mostly what I did after I got all my large material was I would just jack it up enough to drive forward, like 5 feet, 6 feet to work behind where the driver sits, and work up above the cab over, and then I would back under. So I tried to make sure the truck was under it most of the time. But yeah, it is removable. Like I feel confident I could remove it. It would take a couple hours at this point because it is bolted through the framing to the flatbed. So I have to take off the bottom layer of, the baseboard essentially to access those bolts. And I have the electrical solar system grounded to the chassis. And I also have my water lines running down to a tank. So there will be some disconnection that would have to occur to take it off now. But it is technically removable. And that was like part of the important aspect of the design too. I also knew that maybe down the line I would want to diesel swap the truck, or something like this. And if I needed to take the cabin off, I wanted to be able to do that because if it needs to go into a shop or if I just need to work on it, there's certain types of projects that would be like, yeah, dude, take that thing off, and in that case, I wanted to be able to do it. So yeah, there was lots of like forethought, I guess, but yeah, main thing was gathering the windows, gathering the wood stove, and then doing like research on insulation types, like what makes the most sense for that. Doing lots of planning as far as how much space I really have in here. Where do I want the storage to be? How do I need my AC unit vented? There were these lots of like little things that that like in the storage and all that sort of stuff was kind of as it was built. I basically framed it, windows, and then I was like, okay, how do I want this to be? Because in the Pacific Northwest, it gets rainy in the fall, and so I'm working outside. The first priority is finishing like the exterior of the build, like getting the framing, the windows in, and getting everything weatherproofed, getting a house wrapped, getting the siding on, getting all the polyurethane, like everything on the exterior, getting the metal roof on, all of that, getting the solar secured to the roof. Everything that was going to make it permeable to the coming fall weather was the first priority in the build. And then after that, I just walked around in here and was basically like, okay, like what am I gonna, where do I want my dresser? How much space do I need? Do I want this big mirror in here? You know what I mean? Like, where am I gonna put the guitars? So all that stuff came after it was weather tight. But yeah, do you have a more specific question? I feel like I could just randomly say shit forever.
No, it's good, man. I love hearing about everyone's build process, and everyone's a little bit different, but just kind of going forward is the main theme. Have have you how did you like finance this build? I'm imagining it wasn't free.
Yeah.
So, at this time when you're living in this kind of compound with your family members, were you working? Were you doing like side hustle work
Yeah,
and kind
yeah.
of
Dude, I put some of
build
the
zonas?
Yeah, yeah, no, I put some of the bill, like, on credit cards, you know what I mean? Like, it was not like a ultra, like, responsible, like, totally secure decision in the regards that, like, I had a bunch of liquid cash, to spend on this. Those are paid off now, but you know what I mean? It took it some time. And then, I was working at the same time. So, I was spending time with the family, working, whether, it be building a sauna well, no, I guess it would have been building saunas at that point. So, I would have been working for the lady. So, I was probably if I was to give you like an estimate, the days probably looked something like working from maybe like 7, 8 a.m. till like 1 or 2, and then having lunch and then going to build this from like 3 until like 10. Just
Got it.
that. And that was like about 3 months of that type of schedule. Oh.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, that makes sense. Um, Super cool. It sounds like the jobs you took out of college, like you weren't looking for money, you're looking for skills, which is really cool, working to learn
Yeah.
and then putting all those skills into this build with the framing, with knowing how to do windows, knowing how to do finish work. Uh, all those processes you're mentioning are difficult just to learn by YouTube, whether it's like wrapping a house and all those things.
Yeah.
Um, so that's awesome. What was the, official christening date, and what was kind of your first adventure or so in the rig, and how did it perform based on your expectations?
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting, dude. I don't know. I want to say when was like the christening day? I don't know. I probably have to look back through my phone. It would have
Yeah,
been because the thing is, what happened was I got the exterior done, kind of like a rush, and then the interior came together piece by piece. Like it wasn't like I did it took another month and the whole interior was finished. There was still things that as I was like the little bench system here that holds the firewood and stuff like that wasn't there for quite a while. So it's hard for me to say, but the christening definitely would have been around, yeah, it would have been like probably December or something like that, December, January, well, yeah, a couple winters ago. Yeah, that's when I would say it's pretty much like the same as this. I guess one thing to note about that though is I did make a design change and re-side just the sides of it at one point because I had like put on some really inadequate oil-based stain on the side cedar planks. They used to have cedar planks running down the side as well. And it was gathering up so much grime and stuff from the
Mhm.
road that it was like the next summer I re-sided just the sides and refinished the front and back because it was starting to look pretty like tattered just because it was picking up so much oil and grease from the road when I was driving. And so that was kind of like a remodel that happened like way sooner than it should have had to, but it was because of a error in construction, which is fine. You live and you learn. But yeah, it's hard to say what the first trip would be either, man. I mean, I know all of those things someone might assume they would stick out more vividly to me, but definitely the most memorable moments were like I would say when the first snow came, and like I could go around somewhere and like I was going camping and it was snowing outside, and I remember just thinking how beautiful it was. And this would be like whether I was camping out at like some site somewhere or whether I was on the street. You know what I mean? This was like I just remember thinking, dang, this is so beautiful. I have my little wood stove going and the snow's falling. And so I would say that that winter was the time when I was like, it's done. And I'm taking trips in it, and I'm enjoying it. And family's coming with me sometimes, or friends or whatever, you know. So it was definitely the up and running that winter.
Perfect, yeah. That must have been a quite the sight just to be sitting inside with those big windows, watching that snow come down, wood fire, stove crackling,
Oh,
and, I can only imagine just the joy and, like, the inner peace you must have felt at that moment.
yeah, 100%, dude. It was, it was just like that feeling. But there's been moments, different, environments, you know what I mean? Even making it down here to, like, Southern Utah, which is the first time I've taken this build here, you know, like the first real sweet campsite that I got to, I think it was, like, maybe the second, like, viral post that I've had that's, like, actually gets, you know, whatever, a couple million plus, and, I mean, to me, it's no shocker that it did. I remember being in it, and I was like, "Dang, man." I was like, "This is gorgeous." And also in my mind, um, being getting down here is kind of like the perfect place for this build, and the reason being because although it's really gorgeous when it's snowy all the time, the issue becomes, like, the solar. Like, the power regeneration is, like, not as good. So, like, right now, I mean, this thing is, like, fully charged all the time. I can run whatever I want all the way through the night without any worrying about any sort of power issues, you know, because I pull that power right back in, you know, before noon, no problem. Things are topped off. Uh, but definitely when I was out in like the winter in the mountains, I would have you know, great days at a time, and then I'd be like, oh wait a minute, like I haven't gotten any power in the last 3 days, and now you know I can't really listen to music on the sound system, or you know things like this, or my refrigerator I need to turn it off or whatever. So there was definitely like these moments where I realized kind of different aspects of what I've built and where it really shines and where it, you know, what might be different if I was to build a build for another type of place. But yeah, man, making it to the mountains was like a moment where I was like, yeah, really soaking it in, getting down here and parking over the like a lookout into the beautiful desert. You know, it's like the you know like the painted walls on the canyons and stuff and all that. It's just like, man, this is what I thought of. Like this is what I wanted this to be. You know, and so yeah, I've had multiple moments like that where it just feels like fully actualized.
And how does it, handle on the road? Like, what kinda I mean, I gotta know, like, how fast are you going and, like, what's your MPG? 'Cause I know those 460s with no load, downhill, no tailwind are pulling, like, 8 miles a gallon.
Yeah, no,
So
I mean, yeah,
I can only imagine.
you're not off. I mean, I would say it doesn't change much. It went down a little. It probably gets like around 7, if I'm being honest. And yeah, it's one of those things where it's like it doesn't get good gas mileage when it's loaded. It doesn't get good gas mileage when it's not loaded. It also doesn't struggle with the truck at all. Like it pulls it along like a breeze, even with the big, you know, brick structure in the front. You know, the complete lack of aerodynamic consideration. It still pulls great. Um, I don't like push it though. You know what I mean? Like I definitely drive in the slow lane. Like growing up was in with sedans, and then later in life, like you know, with my love for motorcycles, it's kind of like I'm either in the far left or the far right lane, depending on what vehicle I'm in, you know. And so it like definitely reshaped the way I think about driving. Also, there's just like so many valuable things to me in here and stuff that I'm like, it's not worth an accident. It's like I have way more force if I was to run into somebody. So I would say it's maybe more of a cautious driver in general on the highways. I kinda say regardless of the speed limit, like, if there's places like in Idaho or something where the speed limit's 80, I'm not doing 80, I'll probably be doing, like, 70, 65, 70, you know, in the far right lane, just like a I kinda drive on the highway like a semi. That's kind of like my group of dudes on the road, you know? So
Totally.
that's where my, like, pace is and stuff, and, yeah, so that's how it handles on the highway, but and again, it handles fine, like, I've been in pretty serious crosswinds and stuff like that, and obviously, if it's, like, really bad, I just slow down a little bit, but it does you know, I've just never felt a risk of, like, sailing over or anything like that. It's always handled just fine, and, yeah, as far as off-road goes, it's kind of similar attitude. It's just, like, slow going, you know, like, when I'm going like, I've pushed the suspension and stuff more than I would have initially, like, wanted to, you know? There's been moments when I'm on the off you know, the roads where can't really back out of the situation, I have to drive forward, and I'm really starting to lean or, like, whatever. Just go slow and just be as technical as I can and as thoughtful as I can, and I just off-road with, you know, patience, And obviously, if I'm on, or when it gets to the, the bumps in the gravel road, sometimes when it feels like vibrating your whole thing, I'll slow down or whatever. So it just depends. It depends on like where I'm driving, but yeah, definitely slow moving, man. Definitely slow moving.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I drove cross country last summer, I've always been like, I got to go fast, I'll get there quicker kind of thing. And I realized, the slower you go, the better gas mileage you get. Maybe not in your case, but like engines work pretty good around 60 miles an hour. But above that, like the fuel consumption curve, like really increases. So although you might be able to go faster, like in a smaller car, you end up having to stop more for gas. This is like, I don't know how I learned this through a trucker or something. So I would go 65 in my truck and guys would pass me, do no worries. I'm just cruising with the semis. And then they'd pull over for gas, food, restroom, whatever. I'm cruising. And then sure enough, an hour later, they pass me again. I'm like,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
right.
it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
No, I mean,
And
that's a great point, and I think about it too, I definitely think I'm like, well, I'm eating gas no matter what I do, but if I can save, a mile, if I can get a little more miles per gallon,
yeah,
then I'll take it, I think something that made me really, aware of the situation you're talking about where there's that optimized, fuel efficiency, workload for the engine was motorcycle riding because I used to have, well, I still have the bike, but I used to ride this bike all the time that had no gas gauge and like nothing like that. And so I would have, 2.5 gallons and I would get like 45 miles a gallon. I love the bike. It's just freaking awesome. But I remember in my mind, there would always be these times when, maybe I thought a gas station was coming up sooner, or I like get to the gas station I thought was coming and it's closed or something like this. And I remember thinking, researching, asking people that I knew, whatever, like, how do you squeeze out, miles out of something if like you need to? And of course, there's like one of the main things that you just brought up is just being efficient with the gas, like sitting at the right, revolutions per minute, depending, you know what I mean, on what you're doing. When you're going downhill, just pull the clutch in and coast, bro. You know what I mean? On the bike, whatever. If you really need to squeeze miles out, there's like approaches you can take to get to the next gas station when you're starting out with like 2.5 gallons on a motorcycle that kind of subconsciously do affect the way that I look at trying to get a little more efficiency out of this for sure.
perfect. Yeah, those are some really good tips. Um, I noticed, and we chatted earlier on the phone, like earlier this week, but your approach to, or maybe lack of approach to the social media. Talk to me a little bit about, how you're finding like social media, how it's working for you, because like you said, that clip got over 1 million views, which is just like some people maybe strive for that their whole life, and you kind of just did it maybe by accident. Obviously, it took a lot of hard work to
Yeah,
get to that point.
yeah,
But
yeah.
was social media like a thing in the back of your mind when you were building this thing, or was it an afterthought? And like, how has your approach to social media developed or changed recently?
Man, I have to say, like, I don't even know if I like what's going on. You know what I mean? If I'm being
Hmm.
like quite honest, I'll just be as like candid as the whole experience as I can be. Um, because yeah, I would say it's like it was unusual to have the experience that I had with social media. But I'm gonna start with like kind of like the history of that for me. So when I was, when I after I graduated college and I opened up my personal training studio for a couple years before COVID, before I got into construction, that was the first time I really tried to bring anything to social media, and it was like, I would like write this philosophical caption that I cared a lot about, and I believe genuinely was well written, and I was in great shape and doing a pretty impressive calisthenics exercises and stuff like this, and posting like every day, and just like nothing, man. Like it was like and nothing. Like I had a business going, it wasn't my main priority, but I just remember thinking, I would see these pages with tens, hundreds of thousands of followers. I'd just be like, how does that even happen, dude? Like, is there like a trick? You know what I mean? I'm like, this is wild, And some of the time I look at the content, and I'm like, I totally get it. You know what I mean? And some of the time I look at the content, and I'm like, there's no, I can't figure out how this is interesting at all. And I'm even trying to be generous, right? And so I remember looking at the whole social media realm and kind of being skeptical of it. Like, when I was younger and the first time I tried to push into it. And, but again, it was never like a main priority. I just had these weird feelings about it. I was like, this is odd. I remember I spent a lot of time on it, like as a consumer, more than I wish I could have, wish I would have. In hindsight, I feel like a lot of people could probably say that. But um, yeah, like, but what happened was I took like 3 years where I like was building and doing all this stuff, building saunas, all these things, and never posting about it, never doing any. Well, I guess it wouldn't have been building the saunas because the well, no, Okay, anyway, sorry. Sometimes I'm, like, thinking about stuff, and I'm like, "When did stuff happen?" But, I think, like, 3 years where I hadn't really posted anything, and what happened was some guy had reached out to me because I have this camper listed for sale, on Facebook Marketplace because I wanted to build another build. I had, like, left the building process, um, and this was just, like, a total I was like, "Hey, I wonder what this can get," and it was getting, like, tens of thousands of marketplace lookups per week. And I remember thinking, I'm like, "That's kind of odd too," because 'cause I've sold other stuff on Facebook Marketplace, and a hot item will get like 1,000 clicks, you know what I'm saying? Like if someone's like, "Oh, they're looking for this type of stuff." So I remember thinking that's kind of odd. And this dude reached out to me in Facebook Messenger and was like, "Hey, dude, I have this YouTube channel. His name is Jared, cool guy." And he hit me up and he was like, "Can I do an interview with you for my YouTube channel?" He's like, "It might help you sell your rig." And so he has like a couple 100,000, maybe 300,000 subscribers on YouTube. And, again, like, I've been out of this game for a long time. I was never even mildly successful in the game before. And, he comes up to the we meet up in this parking lot, and he does this, like, shoot or whatever and, walk through. And I, like, don't really think about it, I'm like, "Oh, that's cool, whatever, like, maybe that'll help, maybe it won't, I have no idea." And, nonetheless, good connection. And so he drops it I forget. I think maybe I don't know. I don't know if he had a plan on when it was gonna drop. I had no idea at the time. I probably didn't care. And he drops the interview, and I just remember thinking like on the first day it got like 70,000 views, and I remember thinking on like YouTube for like a 30-40 minute video, and I was like, huh, and then I checked on it like maybe like a week after that, and it had like 200,000 views. And I remember thinking in my mind, I'm like, damn, okay, like that's interesting because it was like as candid as this, and as
Mhm.
like unprepared or unscripted as this. It was literally just some dude showed up with a camera and filmed my shit, and I was just like answering questions about it, and it got good views, And I was looking at his page and seeing kind of like what other videos of his were doing. You know what I mean? I noticed it was kind of standing out, it's in a way of like traction or whatever. And so that's when I thought, I was like, okay, like what's kind of hot right now? Maybe I should make an Instagram post. I haven't done this in forever. I don't know, I don't know what I'm doing. But I'll just go make an Instagram post. I don't know. YouTube is like too much for me right now. And so I drove to this local lake, and like the sun was setting, and I made I, basically my concept was just like, hey guys, this is it, right? I was like, what's up? In my mind, I thought the Instagram maximum was a minute. I didn't know you had 3 minutes. I literally thought it was a minute. So I put, so I have my little camera, and I just record starting the window, and I'm like, oh, it makes it look bigger in the mirror. So I'll go in the mirror first. What's up, guys? This is my 1990 F-350 custom truck cabin. These are a couple things that I think are cool about it. It's, my 3 design elements that matter to me, big floor plan, all this. A big floor pan, big windows, and wood fire stove. That's essentially what I was saying. But I like fumbled over my words a couple times, and so I like took like maybe 3 takes total. On the third one, I still didn't say everything right. I remember like instead of like floor plan, I said like foot plan, or like I don't know, something I wouldn't do now. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so I record that video and I posted it on Instagram. And maybe that evening I went to bed and had like a couple thousand views. And that was more than anything like I'd ever even posted before. But I was just like a couple thousand views, like no big deal. I wake up and yeah, I mean it was maybe like 30,000 or something like this. And I was like, whoa, that's kind of crazy. Comments start coming in. And then that day it was just weird, man, because again, coming from somebody with no like social media activity at all, really, like I realized I'm like, okay, so what am I gonna do? Like, so it's 30,000, it's going 40,000, 50,000. I mean, it's going up like, 50,000 views an hour, And I remember thinking, this is weird. And I don't know what I'm doing. Don't know what to do with this. Don't know if I need to make a story. Don't know. I had no idea. Didn't even think about any of that. All I remember thinking was like, okay, well, so this is driving a bunch of traffic to like this page that has like random fitness quotes from 3 years ago. And I was like, so I'm just gonna take the old stuff from 3 years ago, just archive it and change the handle to the custom truck cabin because it used to just be my name. And I was like, I realized, yeah, sure, I have like 900 followers from 3 years ago who are my homies, but like now I have like 8,000 followers who are here because of this truck post. So they're not here because they want to hear my fitness or whatever. You know what I mean? And so and again, I'm not even actively doing that. It was just old stuff on my page. And so I was like, okay, I'll take this page, get a truck, I'll make the bio about the custom truck cabin. And yeah, like that day it goes over 1 million. And I remember thinking, and it was weird because, I'm like driving because I'm like, I didn't make another post. You know what I mean? I'm driving to this place because everyone's like, oh, I don't believe it's on a truck. Oh, it ain't on a truck. That's someone's cabin. Like, this is a joke, whatever. Uh, and and I'm driving to like go to try to find a scenic place, take a little 50-second because I didn't even know I had 3 minutes again. Take like under a minute, little walk around video. And I can't even like look at the directions because my notifications are just like comment, 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 comment. Clear it, clear it, comment.
Yeah.
Trying to drive, and I'm like, dude, I'm trying to drive, um, and again, and I know like it's just there's always like levels and scales. Like I'm sure this is like I don't know how viral million is even considered. In my mind, I view that as like a significant mark, and so yeah, basically, dude, though I got to the place, filmed that one, and then, like, I filmed the second video, I posted it, and, like, 5 minutes later, I get in the car, and I check it, it's, like, 6,000 views, and I'm like, "Holy sh," you know? So, I think questions just keep running in, and maybe for, like, a week straight, it's, like, pretty serious traffic, like, everything, like, well over, like, 300,000 views or something like this, um, and I get, like, just, like I get to, like, high 20,000 followers in, like, a week, you know? And, I remember thinking, there's something here, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what to do with it. I don't know, like, exactly how I'm going to handle this, but we'll see. And then I would just intermittently post things, like, here and there, and some of it would do good and some of it wouldn't. And I would say, nowadays it's still like that. I remember then I got over 30,000. It was kinda slow rolling. It was maybe I get, like, 100 new followers a day, and, I remember thinking, I'm like, "Oh, like, maybe it's just like a wave. Maybe that was the wave." Like, I don't know. And then I come out here and I start posting again after taking like a month off because I was just like, whatever, back to life. And and then I started recording these posts out here, and one of them takes off, and that one probably almost has 3 million views right now. And that was like maybe a week and a half ago. And then I mean, my page went from like 32,000 followers to 68,000 and whatever it's out right now in like 2 weeks, maybe. And, yeah, so that was like so it's been an interesting experience. I think obviously at this point, it's still quite curious. I don't know though. Sometimes I'll take a video and I'll post it and I'll be like, "This is gonna be a banger," you know what I mean? And it just flops, and I'm like, "I don't understand that." Or like I'll take a very unefforted cut. Like I'd say the two most viral posts I've made about this thing, like no effort. They were like the most like, "Oh, this is just beautiful and I'm just gonna take a video." So yeah, social media is interesting, bro. Like I can't say that I have like a real like plan with it other than I do understand that um the platform is good for like this like in my intent to make this my business. And I do need to refine the approach. I'm aware of that. But I'm learning. Like I just don't know the space that well. And I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah, it's, I mean, those are some significant, numbers, and to get that many views and followers, I mean, yeah, it's cool, and it's cool that you didn't, like, think, "Oh, I have all these followers, I need to, like, sell them stuff," you know? You just kinda like, "Oh, interesting, cool, guess people are into what I'm doing. Guess I'll keep doing a few posts, but I don't need to make it, like, my goal to, you know, email, sign up today, smash the subscribe, hit that like button, tell your friends, call your grandma."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, all that whole thing. So, and I think, social media is super weird. Um, I like to think of it like we're using it for good, right? To connect people, to build communities, to put people in touch with another, to share, build processes, which is why I love doing this podcast because it's like an extension of who you get to talk to on social media. I can DM all day, but to have these conversations and share these insights is like, I really think I feel like we're using social media for good, to unite and to not really divide and to share ideas, which is super cool. So,
I agree.
well, one last thing I want to hit on before we wrap this one up is future plans. I know we talked about on the phone recently about you pivoting and maybe trying to do camper builds full time and maybe using some social media to kind of explain how you're building, or to kind of leverage a different audience. But why don't you talk to me about future plans and kind of incorporating lessons learned into whatever you have coming up next?
Yeah, yeah. Sure. I appreciate the opportunity. Yeah. So I think I think for me, like regardless of whether or not this social media was even happening for me, I would be building more of these because that was my intention before I ever even posted about this. But yeah, so I'm kind of in this position right now where I'm trying to decide, am I going to go the route of like production level building, come up with like main, concepts and sell them? Or do I want to like be like a creative, you know what I mean? And take stuff to YouTube. I know that for sure I do want to document my next build series on YouTube. I really haven't done anything. I have like one interior walkthrough video on YouTube. Other than that, it's just shorts or whatever that are like the same thing I post on other platforms. And so I think at this point, my plan is to document a build of something similar to this, as a means to also grow a platform somewhere where I feel like I can actually connect more with the people. Because I kind of agree to like what you're saying. Not only, uh, can you just DM people and like have some level of community that way. But I think even the type of platform just it tailors to a certain type of like, depth to how you can connect with the people who like follow you or whatever. Because in my mind, um, like I appreciate the opportunity to do this, but it's like, I feel like the grand thing that maybe I will contribute to this world, maybe this, who knows, but I would like the opportunity to connect with people on like more than just this and get to like know people a little better. People who follow me and support me and stuff like that. And I think, when it comes to like TikTok or something, it's like so quick. And like, with Instagram, it's so quick and stuff. And I feel fortunate to like have been uh accelerated fairly quickly in those platforms because I do think they're like a great place to build a community. But I do think that like what we're doing here, this podcast and YouTube and stuff like that is a place that I would like to go regardless of like the revenue strategy in this whole thing for me. Because yeah, who knows? Maybe I build like 2 or 3, cabins a year on trucks and document them, and I have like at least 5 in my mind that I know I want to build that are if people think this is cool. I'm like, dude, like this to me was like just obvious. You know what I mean? There's a lot more like in the tank. And so I think that's really what I'm gonna shoot for, like no matter what, is documenting and sharing like creative processes. And maybe that will lead, to sponsorship or something financial down the line, or maybe I'll go the production route. Like we'll see. That obviously takes a decent bit of capital to really get going, and maybe I'll do that. Like I don't know. I'm not opposed to it. I've been talking to people who would like to invest in something like that with me, so I'm not. There's a lots of possibilities here, but we'll see. We'll see what the future holds. Like subscribe, yeah, follow, whatever if you want to know more. Like we'll see how it goes.
Awesome, man. Well, really enjoyed talking to you today and getting to hear kind of your philosophy on well, your philosophical background, but how that's kind of played into your builds and your outlook on life. Super fascinating. And in the meantime, I guess the best way for people to stay up to date with your adventures is just on Instagram, or what's that?
Yeah, yeah, I would say Instagram. Instagram is like the highest priority for me at this moment, as far as like I'm the most consistent on there. Yeah, and so custom truck cabin on Instagram. The handle on is the same on YouTube, but I haven't really
Okay.
put anything there yet. I would say that again, like in keeping kind of with the statement at the end, I would prefer that platform, as far as like ultimately because of the quality of content that and like the actual like depth of content there. So yeah, if you would like to see what's coming next and you want to learn how to build something like this, then YouTube is the place. But if ease of access, Instagram is quick. Custom truck cabin, and the same on both.
Perfect. And I have a dream of I'll link to those below for people listening or watching on YouTube, so you guys can just scroll down there and click and follow along on Christopher's adventures there. And I do have maybe it's far fetched, maybe it's not far fetched, but a dream of building a sauna on the back of a truck bed. We got to get like an old Toyota like 1-ton dually, those little like 22 REs, and like build a mobile sauna. I think that'd be so cool to
That,
have. Go to
that,
like surf contests or snowboard contests.
Dude, that's absolutely right, man. I mean, like, it's funny you say that. The lady who I've been working for a long time, she wants me to build one for her in like July. So that is probably some variant of like the type of idea. But I mean, I see for me, it's like I just love hearing about creative ideas and I like executing on them. I like doing what I can with what I have and who I know to make something cool and creative. And so yeah, man. I mean, that's a great idea. I'm like right there with you. I think a sauna on the back of a truck would be sick. I think being able to take it to like a local like lake in the fall or winter or something would be sick, man, and people would love that stuff. So,
Totally.
uh, so yeah, I think that's a great variant, and that one's coming at some point on YouTube too.
All
Uh,
right.
Probably this late summer. But yeah, man, I mean, yeah, not to hijack what you said, because I definitely want to acknowledge the fact that that's a vision you have, and that's cool.
Yeah, and I appreciate hearing that the positive feedback. Well, Chris, we'll wrap up the podcast, man. Thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us about your upbringing, your college experiences, your travels, the camper itself, and you shared a lot of really good insight. I'm really excited for our listeners to follow along for what's next, and hopefully see you out in Moab or up in PNW or somewhere in between. Who knows?
Yes, sir, man. If I'm rolling through town, I'll keep where you got in mind, and maybe we can meet up.
Please.
Well, but I appreciate the opportunity, man. You're a very cool guy, and thank you for the platform.
Oh, thank you so much, Chris. And stay tuned, and we will follow up with Chris with those links below so you guys can check it out and stay tuned to what Chris is up to. So, Chris, I'm going to stay on the line. I'm going to end this podcast right now. Hit the stop button.